"McGray, you'll take lunch last today. You're the least valuable person on this team." Richard's voice cut through the marketing department like a blade, each word designed to humiliate. I felt my stomach drop as 23 pairs of eyes turned toward my corner desk. The open-plan office fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I gripped my coffee mug tighter, feeling the ceramic warm against my palms as heat crept up my neck. Richard stood near the printer, arms crossed, wearing that smug expression I'd grown to despise over the past 8 months. "Creative team goes first at noon," he continued, gesturing toward the senior designers. "Account managers at 12:30, and junior staff after 1 o'clock. McGray, you can head out once everyone's back." His thin smile made my skin crawl. Someone needs to keep the phones covered while the real work gets done. I forced myself to nod, swallowing the response that burned in my throat. That's when the glass elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling & Associates, our most prestigious client, stepped out, her Louboutin heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. Her sharp eyes swept the room before landing directly on me. "There's my creative genius," she called out, her voice carrying across the suddenly electric silence. To my shock, she was walking straight toward me. "McGray-chan." Victoria extended her manicured hand, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "I came to personally thank you for the campaign that saved our product launch. Our sales exceeded projections by 140% in the first quarter alone." Richard's face drained of color as Victoria continued, her voice reaching every corner of the stunned office. "That viral social media strategy you developed? Pure brilliance. We've had 3 competitors try to hire you away from us through back channels. I'm here to make sure that never happens. Before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to how this nightmare began. My name is McGray-chan, and 6 months ago, I was living a completely different life. I'd spent 4 years building a reputation as a digital marketing innovator at Chen & Associates, yes, my family's agency. I specialized in viral content strategy and had created 3 campaigns that became industry case studies. When I decided to strike out on my own and prove myself outside the family business, I thought my track record would speak for itself. Richard hired me, though he made it clear he was doing me a favor. "Your portfolio is impressive," he'd said during my interview, barely glancing at my work. "But agency experience is different from corporate marketing. We'll start you at junior level and see if you can adapt to real-world constraints." I accepted because I wanted to prove I could succeed independently. What I didn't realize was that Richard had a pattern of hiring talented women, systematically undermining their confidence, and keeping them trapped in roles far below their capabilities while taking credit for their innovations. My first month was a masterclass in workplace sabotage. Richard would assign me projects with impossible deadlines, then criticize my work as creative but impractical in team meetings. He'd schedule strategy sessions during my lunch breaks, then act surprised when I missed them. My ideas were dismissed as too ambitious, only to reappear weeks later as Richard's breakthrough concepts. The breaking point came with the Sterling & Associates crisis. Their new eco-friendly product line was launching in 6 weeks, but their traditional marketing approach was falling flat. Focus groups were responding poorly, pre-orders were low, and Victoria was panicking. The account represented 40% of our annual revenue, a relationship Richard constantly reminded everyone he'd personally secured. Richard assigned the senior team to handle the strategic components, brand positioning, media buys, executive presentations. I was given what he called digital support, essentially social media posting and website updates. "Perfect for your skill level," he'd said with that patronizing smile. I stayed late that Thursday, researching target demographics while the office emptied. Around 9 p.m., I stumbled across something interesting in the consumer behavior data. The focus groups weren't rejecting the product, they were rejecting the messaging. The eco-friendly angle was being presented as sacrifice and guilt, but the data showed consumers wanted to feel empowered and proud of their choices. I spent the next 6 hours developing a complete social media strategy that reframed the product as a status symbol for environmentally conscious consumers. I created a campaign called Green Luxury, positioning eco-friendly choices as premium lifestyle decisions. The concept included influencer partnerships, user-generated content challenges, and a viral hashtag campaign. I almost deleted it. Who was I to redesign their entire approach? But something made me send it directly to Victoria's assistant with a note, alternative perspective on the Sterling campaign. Please feel free to ignore if not helpful. 3 days later, Victoria called me directly. This is exactly what we needed, she said, her excitement palpable. Can you execute this strategy alongside your current responsibilities? I worked 18-hour days for the next month, secretly managing the entire digital rollout while maintaining my regular assignments. The campaign exploded. The hashtag Green Luxury became the top trending topic for 3 consecutive days. User-generated content flooded social media. Pre-orders increased by 300% in 2 weeks. Richard received a glowing email from Victoria praising our team's innovative strategic thinking and exceptional execution. He printed it out and posted it in the break room with a handwritten note, "This is why senior-level strategy matters. Great work, team." The pattern continued for months. I'd create breakthrough campaigns while Richard took credit and continued marginalizing me. When I asked about advancement opportunities, he'd shake his head sympathetically. "You're just not ready for client-facing responsibilities, McGray. Keep working on your fundamentals." After Victoria's surprise office visit, the dynamics shifted subtly. Colleagues who'd previously ignored me started asking about my process. Junior team members began coming to me with campaign ideas. Even the office manager started saving the good conference rooms for my project meetings. But Richard's behavior intensified. He began requiring approval for every social media post, questioning my time management, and copying senior leadership on emails about my communication style. 2 weeks after Victoria's visit, he called me into his office. "We need to discuss your client boundaries," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "You've been operating outside established protocols." Inside was a printed email from Victoria addressed to me, thanking me for insights I'd provided about reaching younger demographics. "All client communication goes through proper channels," Richard continued. "This creates confusion about reporting structures." "Victoria reached out to me directly," I explained. "I thought it would be unprofessional not to respond." "Ms. Sterling," he corrected. "And your job is content creation, not account management. I've been managing Sterling and Associates for 3 years. You've been here 8 months." I nodded, accepting the official warning he placed in my file for circumventing communication protocols. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my laptop. The warning felt like the final straw. I opened a new document and began documenting everything, every stolen idea, every undermined project, every instance where my work had been reattributed. I created a portfolio of before and after campaign results, client testimonials, and performance metrics. Then I made a decision. I would stop fixing Richard's mistakes. For months, I'd been quietly editing his presentations, fact-checking his client pitches, and polishing his strategic recommendations. No more. I also began building direct relationships with other clients through official channels, being exceptionally responsive and innovative whenever they reached out. I made myself quietly indispensable while documenting every interaction. The quarterly review was approaching, a day-long presentation where each department showcased their achievements to the executive team. Richard had been preparing for weeks, highlighting our division's creative renaissance and strategic innovation. The morning of the review, Richard dropped a thick folder on my desk. "I need these campaign metrics compiled and formatted for today's presentation. Due by 4 p.m. Inside were raw performance data from our 5 biggest clients, including Sterling and Associates, with sticky notes indicating how Richard wanted certain numbers presented. The data told a story completely different from the one Richard planned to tell. 4 of 5 campaigns had succeeded entirely due to strategic pivots I'd implemented after Richard's initial approaches failed. Client satisfaction scores were consistently higher on projects where I'd had direct input. The only measurable strategic innovation was directly traceable to my uncredited work. I compiled everything exactly as requested, with no creative interpretation. Raw numbers, accurate timelines, and precise attribution based on project files. I submitted it at 3:55 p.m. "Everything accurate?" Richard asked, barely glancing at the pages. "Everything is exactly what the data shows," I confirmed. The next morning, the executive team gathered in the main conference room. Richard stood confidently, clicking through slides showing impressive growth charts and innovation metrics. He highlighted the department's strategic evolution, and his hands-on approach to creative development. When he finished, our CEO leaned forward. "These results are impressive, Richard. Who specifically manages the creative strategy for our top accounts?" Richard smiled broadly. "I personally oversee all strategic direction, with junior staff handling execution under my guidance." The CEO nodded, then reached into his briefcase. "Interesting. We actually conducted client interviews last week about their experience with our creative services." Richard's confidence flickered. "Client interviews?" "Yes. We wanted to understand what was driving these exceptional results." The CEO pulled out a thick folder. 4 of our 5 top clients couldn't identify you as their primary creative contact. They all mentioned the same person as their strategic partner and creative visionary. The room's attention shifted to me as Richard's face cycled through confusion, realization, and panic. "Based on this feedback," the CEO continued, "we're restructuring the creative department around client relationships rather than traditional hierarchies. The data is clear. Clients stay because of consistent, innovative creative partnerships, not organizational charts." Richard stood abruptly. "Sir, with respect, I've personally managed these accounts for years. One survey doesn't capture the full scope of established relationships." "Actually," the CEO interrupted, consulting his notes, "when we asked Victoria Sterling who managed her account, she specifically said McGray Chun had been her primary contact for strategic direction. She couldn't recall working with you directly in over 3 months." The conference room crackled with tension. Every executive was watching the dynamic unfold. "We're creating a new creative strategy division," the CEO announced. "And based on client feedback and performance data, we'd like you to lead it, McGray." 24 years of professional composure nearly cracked as I processed his words. "Thank you for the opportunity," I managed. "I'd be honored." Richard's face had gone completely white. "This is highly irregular." "The results speak for themselves," our CFO interjected. "The innovation and client satisfaction metrics in accounts where McGray had direct involvement are undeniable. The Sterling account alone justifies the restructuring." The meeting concluded with logistics about my new role, team structure, and transition timeline. As we filed out, the CEO touched my shoulder. "My office in 20 minutes, he said quietly. Walking back to my desk, I felt strangely calm despite having just achieved what should have been a career-defining victory. Colleagues stared openly, whispers following in my wake. Richard had vanished immediately after the meeting. 20 minutes later, I sat across from CEO Marcus Webb in his corner office. "That was uncomfortable," he said, settling behind his desk. "Necessary, but uncomfortable." "I wasn't expecting any of this," I admitted honestly. He tapped a pen against his desk. 2 months ago, Victoria Sterling called me personally. She spent 20 minutes describing how you transformed their entire marketing approach and saved their product launch. She specifically asked if you were being properly utilized. My breath caught. She never mentioned. "She was protecting you," Marcus continued. "But I started paying attention. Last month, we implemented new tracking software that logs who actually works on deliverables versus who submits them. Your name appeared on every high-performing campaign, often with no credit in the final presentations." He turned his monitor toward me, showing a detailed spreadsheet of project contributions. What convinced me something was fundamentally wrong was this. He pulled out 2 versions of the same campaign proposal, one I'd created and another Richard had presented, with my name removed and several of my strategic insights attributed to him. "We need people who understand both creativity and business strategy," Marcus said. "Your new role will oversee creative direction across all departments. Richard will transition to a different position." "Sir, given our history, I'm not sure that arrangement would be productive." "It's not permanent," Marcus replied. "We're evaluating all management structures. How you handle this transition, including managing someone who didn't value your contributions, will tell us about your leadership potential." The message was clear. This was as much a test as a promotion. "One last question," Marcus said as I stood to leave. "Why didn't you ever come forward about any of this?" I considered carefully. "I believed the work would eventually speak for itself," I said finally. And it did. As I closed his office door, my phone buzzed with a company-wide email announcing my promotion. By the time I reached my desk, my inbox was flooded with congratulatory messages. The first was from Richard: "We need to discuss this transition immediately." My office, 3 p.m. I didn't respond. Instead, I began packing my personal items to move to the executive floor. At precisely 3 p.m., I entered Richard's office carrying a leather portfolio. He didn't stand. "This is obviously a mistake that will be corrected once leadership realizes you lack the experience for strategic oversight," he said without preamble. "Is that what we're here to discuss?" I asked, taking a seat without invitation. "What you need to understand is that I built this department's reputation. These are my client relationships. This restructuring is temporary at best." I opened my portfolio and removed a single document. "This is the transition plan approved by Marcus. It outlines new reporting structures and your adjusted responsibilities." Richard barely glanced at it. "I'm not reporting to someone I hired as a junior coordinator 8 months ago." "That's certainly your choice," I replied evenly. "The plan includes 2 options for your continued employment. Option 1 maintains your current compensation with modified responsibilities. Option 2 is a separation package." His laugh was bitter. "You can't seriously believe you have authority to terminate me." Page 2 details the separation provisions, pre-approved by HR and legal, should you choose that option. I watched understanding dawn in his eyes. "I'll need your decision by tomorrow afternoon." "This won't end well for you," Richard said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I know everyone in this industry. Your recommendation would carry significantly less weight than the testimonials from Sterling & Associates, Meridian Group, and Phoenix Creative, our 3 largest clients who have all specifically requested to continue working with me directly." I stood, gathering my portfolio. Their combined business represents 65% of our annual revenue. Richard stared at me as reality sank in. "You orchestrated this entire thing." I paused at the door. "No, Richard. I simply stopped hiding the actual source of our success. The truth became visible once I stepped out of your shadow." The next morning, Richard's desk was empty. By afternoon, facility staff were clearing his office while HR conducted an exit interview. He had chosen option 2. My new role brought immediate challenges. The team that had witnessed my public humiliation now looked to me for leadership. Some were immediately supportive, especially those who'd also experienced Richard's management style. Others remained cautious, waiting to see if my authority would last. I spent my first week meeting individually with every team member, learning about their frustrated ambitions and suppressed ideas. I discovered incredible talent that had been systematically underutilized. Sarah, a brilliant content strategist, relegated to proofreading. Marcus, whose innovative video concepts had been dismissed as too complex despite client enthusiasm. Lisa, whose data analysis insights were consistently more accurate than anyone else's, yet who'd remained stuck in an assistant role for 2 years. "Richard always said I wasn't ready for client presentations," Lisa confided during our one-on-one. "But I have a master's degree in marketing communications. Client presentations were literally what I was trained for." Pattern by pattern, I uncovered Richard's systematic approach to maintaining control while suppressing anyone who might challenge his authority. The department didn't lack talent, it lacked opportunity. My second week, I implemented structural changes. We reorganized around client needs rather than artificial hierarchies. Team members were assigned based on expertise rather than seniority. Everyone received direct client contact appropriate to their skills. Within a month, client satisfaction scores increased across all accounts. Project turnaround times improved by 35%. Creative output accelerated while quality metrics soared. Marcus called me to his office after reviewing our first monthly performance report. "Impressive turnaround," he noted, scrolling through the dashboard. "But I'm curious, these improvements happened too quickly to result from new processes alone." "The capability was always there," I explained. "We just removed the barriers preventing people from using it." He studied me thoughtfully. "Richard's management style created those barriers." "Richard's management style was the barrier," I clarified. "He systematically limited team growth to maintain control." Marcus nodded slowly. "We should have recognized it sooner. I apologize for that oversight." You recognized it when it mattered, I offered. That's more than many organizations manage. Still, it raises concerns about our ability to identify problematic management patterns before they impact retention. He leaned forward. I'd like you to join our executive leadership team. We need your perspective as we evaluate management practices company-wide. Just like that, 6 months after being told I was the least valuable team member, I was sitting at the executive table. The next quarter brought new challenges. 2 competitors attempted to poach our newly empowered team members with aggressive offers. A major client underwent restructuring that threatened their contract. Industry changes affected our traditional campaign approaches. Through it all, our reconfigured team demonstrated remarkable resilience. People who'd once waited for permission now proactively identified opportunities. Meetings that had been dominated by one voice now featured dynamic collaboration. Most importantly, clients noticed the transformation. Our quarterly reviews evolved from tense justifications of missed deadlines to enthusiastic planning sessions for future innovations. 8 months into my new role, I received an unexpected LinkedIn message. Congratulations on your continued success. Your team seems to be thriving. Perhaps we could meet for coffee to discuss industry trends. Richard. I ignored it. 3 days later, another message arrived. I've joined Harrison and Associates. They're very interested in your creative methodologies. A conversation between colleagues could be mutually beneficial. Harrison and Associates was our biggest competitor, known for aggressive talent acquisition tactics. I forwarded both messages to our legal department and continued focusing on our growth strategy. The following week, Victoria Sterling requested an urgent meeting. Harrison and Associates approached us with an intriguing proposal, she explained. They're offering significant cost reductions if we transfer our business to them. That's not unusual during contract renewal season, I noted, maintaining composure despite internal alarm bells. What's unusual is their representatives' detailed knowledge of our account history and strategic preferences, Victoria continued. He suggested your current team was hiding operational inefficiencies that inflated our costs. That representative wouldn't happen to be Richard Stevens, would it? I asked. Victoria's expression confirmed my suspicion. He presented compelling analysis of our account management. Some points seemed concerning until our team reviewed them more carefully. And what did your team find? Creative misrepresentation of standard industry metrics, Victoria replied with a slight smile. The same type of data manipulation you taught us to identify in our own market research. Relief flooded through me. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I didn't come to warn you, Victoria clarified. I came to inform you that we're expanding our contract by 45% next quarter and to ask if you'd keynote our annual marketing summit. We'd like other companies to learn your approach to creative strategy and team development. News of Sterling's expanded contract and Richard's failed recruitment attempt spread quickly through industry channels. 2 additional clients increased their engagements. 4 prospective clients requested proposals specifically citing our reputation for innovative team management. 1 year later, Marcus invited me to dinner with the board of directors. What I'd assumed would be routine quarterly business became something extraordinary. We've been evaluating succession planning, the board chair explained. Marcus has indicated his intention to transition toward retirement within 2 years. I nodded, wondering why this concerned me directly. We'd like you to consider the role of Chief Creative Officer, she continued. Working with Marcus to understand all aspects of company leadership, with potential for further advancement when he retires. The opportunity exceeded anything I could have imagined when I joined as a junior coordinator 18 months earlier. Your ability to transform underperforming systems while maintaining client relationships demonstrates exactly the leadership philosophy we want to cultivate, Marcus added. Plus, the financial results speak for themselves. Your division's profitability increased 52% year-over-year. I accepted, naturally. The transition would begin after completing our current quarter's projects. 2 days later, I received another LinkedIn message, heard about your promotion. Perhaps now you might see value in that industry conversation. I have insights about board dynamics that could prove useful. Richard. This time I responded, thank you for your interest in my career progression. All communications regarding our company should be directed through appropriate channels as outlined in your separation agreement. I wish you continued success at Harrison and Associates. I blocked his profile immediately. My first day as CCO brought unexpected news. Harrison and Associates had announced major restructuring, including significant leadership changes. Richard's name appeared on the departure list. Their press release cited strategic differences regarding team management approaches. That afternoon, Marcus stopped by my new office. "Interesting development at Harrison," he remarked casually. "Their CEO called this morning. Apparently, Richard had been making certain claims about client relationships that didn't materialize." "That sounds familiar," I replied, unable to suppress a smile. "Indeed." She also mentioned they'd received multiple complaints about his management style in just 5 months. Marcus shook his head. "Some people never learn that leadership isn't about control, it's about cultivation." "Speaking of cultivation," I said, "I've been reviewing our management training programs. I'd like to propose adjustments based on what we've learned from our departmental transformation." "I'd expect nothing less," Marcus said with approval. "That's exactly why you're in that chair." 1 year to the day after Richard had announced to the entire office that I was the least valuable team member, I stood at the podium during our annual company meeting as Chief Creative Officer. I was presenting our new strategic vision to over 250 employees. I outlined our approach to collaborative leadership, transparent client partnerships, and advancement opportunities for team members at all levels. I introduced professional development pathways designed to identify and nurture talent throughout the organization. Most importantly, I announced a fundamental shift in our company culture. Value in our organization will no longer be determined by position, seniority, or volume of voice. Value will be measured by contribution, collaboration, and the positive impact we create for our clients and each other. As applause filled the auditorium, I spotted my former teammates, now department heads, creative directors, and innovative leaders in their own right. People whose talents had been buried under an insecure manager's need for control were now driving transformation across the company. That evening, I found a package on my desk with a card signed by the entire original team. Inside was a custom nameplate reading, "McGray-Chun, Most Valuable Leader." The real victory wasn't Richard's downfall, it was watching everyone he'd tried to diminish flourish beyond his limitations. These days, we don't have assigned lunch schedules. Our office features a fully equipped kitchen, flexible break times, and collaborative spaces designed for organic interaction. People eat when they're hungry, rest when they need to recharge, and contribute without artificial barriers. Everyone is valuable here, and they know it. If this story resonates with you, whether you've experienced workplace marginalization or witnessed it happening to others, please share your thoughts below. Have you navigated a toxic work environment? Did you find ways to demonstrate your value despite obstacles? Your experiences might help someone currently walking the path I once traveled. Remember, sometimes the most powerful response to being undervalued isn't about bringing others down, it's about lifting yourself and everyone around you higher than anyone thought possible.